The 2024 US presidential election was one for the history books. Donald J. Trump, the 45th president, returned to the political ring. He aimed to reclaim the White House after his defeat in 2020. The nation held its breath as the campaign unfolded. Tensions were high. The stakes were even higher. Trump's decision to run again surprised few. He had been hinting at a comeback since leaving office. His base remained loyal. They yearned for his return. The Republican Party, however, was more divided. Some embraced him, others feared another 4 years of his tumultuous leadership. The Democrats, meanwhile, struggled to maintain their grip on power. The economy was shaky. Inflation was a concern. President Biden's approval ratings had taken a hit. The stage was set for a brutal election battle. The 2024 election, like many before it, hinged on a handful of key states. These battlegrounds, with their mix of urban and rural voters, became the epicenter of the political storm. Pennsylvania, with its crucial electoral votes, was once again a prize both campaigns desperately wanted to win. Wisconsin and Michigan, two states that had flipped blue in 2020, were back in play. Trump believed he could win them back. His message resonated with blue-collar workers who felt left behind. Arizona and Georgia, states with rapidly changing demographics, also emerged as key battlegrounds. The campaigns poured resources into these states. Rallies were held. Ads blanketed the airwaves. Every vote counted. The outcome in these battleground states would determine the fate of the nation. Donald Trump's campaign rallies were a sight to behold. They were loud. They were passionate. The energy in the air was palpable, with thousands of supporters gathering to catch a glimpse of the man they believed could change the course of the nation. They were filled with devoted supporters, eager to hear his message. These rallies were more than just political events. They were a movement, a phenomenon that drew people from all walks of life, united by their belief in Trump's vision for America. Trump, a master showman, fed off the energy of the crowd. His speeches were a mix of policy promises, personal anecdotes, and sharp attacks on his opponents. He knew how to work the crowd, often pausing to let the cheers and chants wash over him. He reprised his familiar attacks on the media, calling them the enemy of the people. This rhetoric resonated deeply with his base, who felt that the mainstream media was biased against them and their values. He railed against what he called the radical left, painting a picture of a country under siege by extreme ideologies. This narrative of us versus them was a powerful tool in rallying his supporters and creating a sense of urgency and purpose. He promised to make America great again, tapping into the nostalgia of his first term. This slogan became a rallying cry, a promise to return to what his supporters saw as better days. His rallies, however, were not without controversy. They often attracted protesters, leading to tense and sometimes violent confrontations. The divisive nature of his rhetoric meant that his events were flashpoints for conflict. Critics accused him of inciting violence, pointing to the aggressive language he used and the way he seemed to encourage his supporters to confront those who opposed him. They pointed to the events of January 6, 2021, as evidence of the danger his rhetoric posed. The storming of the Capitol was a stark reminder of how words can translate into actions with devastating consequences. Trump's campaign strategy was simple: fire up his base and suppress the opposition's turnout. He knew that a highly motivated base could make the difference in key swing states, and he focused his efforts on energizing his supporters. He hammered home the message that the 2020 election had been stolen from him, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This narrative of a stolen election became a central theme of his post-presidency, keeping his supporters engaged and loyal. This claim, while baseless, resonated with his supporters, fueling their anger and distrust in the system. It created a deep divide in the country, with many Americans questioning the integrity of the electoral process and the future of democracy itself. Section 4. A nation divided. The 2024 election exposed the deep divisions within American society. It was a time when the country seemed more polarized than ever before, with each side firmly entrenched in their beliefs and unwilling to compromise. Trump's candidacy, as it had in 2016, served as a lightning rod for both sides of the political spectrum. His presence in the race reignited old debates and sparked new controversies, making the election a focal point for national discourse. His supporters saw him as a savior, a strong man who would protect their interests and restore America to its former glory. They believed in his vision of a powerful, unyielding America, and they rallied behind his promises of economic revival and national pride. His detractors, on the other hand, viewed him as a threat to democracy, a demagogue who stoked fear and division for his own gain. They feared his rhetoric and policies would undermine the very foundations of the American democratic system. The election became less about policy and more about identity. It was a struggle to define what it meant to be American, with each side claiming to represent the true spirit of the nation. It was a battle between two competing visions of America. One side envisioned a return to traditional values and a strong national identity, while the other side pushed for progress, inclusivity, and change. The media, as always, played a significant role in shaping the narrative. News outlets, with their own biases and agendas, influenced public perception and often exacerbated the divisions. Cable news channels, with their 24/7 coverage and partisan leanings, amplified the existing divisions. They provided a constant stream of information, often sensationalized, that kept the public engaged and polarized. Social media platforms became echo chambers, reinforcing pre-existing beliefs and making it difficult to have a nuanced conversation about the issues. Algorithms prioritized content that generated strong reactions, further entrenching users in their ideological bubbles. In communities across the country, the divisions were palpable. Town hall meetings and local events often turned into battlegrounds, with passionate debates and sometimes even confrontations. Even within families and circles of friends, political discussions became fraught with tension. The election had a way of seeping into every aspect of daily life, making it nearly impossible to avoid the topic. Despite the deep divisions, the election also highlighted the diversity and complexity of the American populace. It was a reminder that the nation is made up of a multitude of voices, each with its own hopes, fears, and aspirations. As the country moved forward, the challenge remained to find common ground and bridge the divides. The future of the nation depended on its ability to come together, despite the differences, and work towards a shared vision of a better America. Section 5. Echoes of 2020. The return of voter fraud allegations. As the election results began to trickle in, a familiar pattern emerged. The air was thick with anticipation and tension, reminiscent of the previous election cycle. Voters lined up at booths, casting their ballots with a sense of civic duty. Election officials meticulously counted each vote, ensuring every voice was heard. Yet amidst this democratic process, shadows of doubt began to form. Trump, sensing a potential loss, started to sow doubt about the integrity of the election. His speeches became more charged, his rhetoric more pointed. He claimed without evidence that there was widespread voter fraud. He took to social media, tweeting allegations of fraud and holding press conferences to amplify his claims. He alleged that the Democrats were trying to steal the election from him, a narrative that resonated deeply with his base. His supporters, already primed to distrust the system, rallied behind him. They held signs, chanted slogans, and attended rallies in droves, convinced that their leader was being wronged. These claims, eerily similar to those he made in 2020, were immediately debunked by election officials and experts. They held press conferences, appeared on news shows, and released statements to reassure the public. They pointed out that there was no evidence of widespread fraud. Analysts reviewed the data, and officials meticulously checked and rechecked ballots. The integrity of the election process was upheld. They emphasized the security measures in place to protect the integrity of the vote. From secure ballot boxes to stringent ID checks, every step was taken to ensure a fair election. However, Trump's words had a powerful effect on his supporters. Many of them, already distrustful of the system, believed his claims. They felt their voices were being silenced, their votes disregarded. Many of them, already distrustful of the system, believed his claims. They felt their voices were being silenced, their votes disregarded. Interviews with Trump supporters revealed a deep-seated belief in the alleged fraud. They refused to accept the results if he lost. The atmosphere grew increasingly charged, with angry protesters and steadfast supporters refusing to back down. The stage was set for a potential constitutional crisis. Legal experts debated the implications, politicians engaged in heated discussions, and the nation watched with bated breath, wondering what the future held. Section 6. Safeguarding the vote. Despite the challenges, election officials across the country worked tirelessly to ensure a free and fair election process. They faced unprecedented pressure and intense scrutiny. They were accused of bias and incompetence. They received death threats, yet they persevered through it all. They understood that democracy itself was at stake and needed protection. They implemented new security measures to protect against foreign interference and tampering. They expanded access to early voting and mail-in ballots for greater participation. They worked long hours to count every vote accurately and fairly. Their efforts were crucial in safeguarding the integrity of the entire election. They stood as a bulwark against those who sought to undermine democracy and its values. They ensured that the will of the people, however divided, would ultimately prevail. Section 7. The Aftermath and the Future. As the dust settled, Donald J. Trump emerged victorious. He had defied the polls and pundits once again. His victory sent shockwaves through the nation and the world. It signaled a continuation of the political earthquake that began in 2016. The road ahead for President Trump will be fraught with challenges. The nation remains deeply divided, the economy is uncertain, the world is watching, wondering what direction America will take under his leadership. One thing is certain, the 2024 election will have a lasting impact on American politics. It has exposed the fragility of democracy and the importance of protecting it. It has shown that the American experiment, while imperfect, is still a work in progress. Only time will tell what the ultimate legacy of this election will be.